want to ask you this just straight. Did you have anything to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur?
Absolutely not.
Right before Reggie Wright got in the vehicle to go get to the hospital, someone else came on the radio and said, "Hey, don't say nothing over the radio."
What you basically just said, the FBI did take over the case. Obviously, as most of you do know, there is no statute of limitations on murder. Sooner or later, there will be an arrest.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this section shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Reginald Lilburn Wright Jr. Reginald. Lilburn is Lil. B as in boy. URN. Wright is WRIGHT. And I'm a junior.
Thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Paul, you may proceed.
As the Tupac trial continues, we're going to do something a little different with today's testimony. Reggie Wright Jr. is on the stand, and we're going to allow him to tell his story in his own words. But some of the people connected to these events are no longer here to speak for themselves. So when Reggie Wright discusses individuals such as Kevin Hackie, Frank Alexander, or Michael Moore, we're going to go back into the archives and allow you to hear what those men said themselves in interviews recorded while they were alive. This is not an attempt to attack Reggie Wright, accuse anyone of lying, or tell you who is right or wrong. We're simply comparing today's testimony with the recorded words of people who were actually part of the story. Reggie will speak for Reggie. Kevin Hackie will speak for Kevin Hackie. Frank Alexander will speak for Frank Alexander. Michael Moore will speak for Michael Moore. They are no longer with us, and we wanted their statements to be a part of this record, so we have fair and balanced understanding. We're not going to make the judgment for you. We're going to put the record in front of you and let you listen for yourself.
You're good, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Do you mind if I call you Reggie?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Sir, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the city of Compton, California. I was born and raised there until about the age of 19.
And who is your father? Who's your father?
My father is Reginald Wright Sr.
And where did your father work?
He worked for the city of Compton Police Department.
And at some point, had he risen up the ranks of the Compton Police Department to become a lieutenant, is it, of gangs?
Eventually captain, but during most of his career was a lieutenant.
Where did you ultimately become a police officer yourself?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
I was a civilian jailer from 1985 until 1989, and then I became a police officer from 1989 until I retired in 1996.
And why did you retire?
I received a medical retirement for I have vascular necrosis in my right ankle, but that's not why I'm like this. This is a result of COVID.
Okay. PD or took your medical retirement. Where did you next work?
Well, to be honest, my last year or two of being a police officer, I was employed as death row security, head of security, and also had a private security company.
Now, was that something that was called like moonlighting, that officers would moonlight when they were off duty?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to us what moonlighting means when you're off duty?
Well, moonlighting is pretty much just working off duty on your off duty hours, working for different companies. I worked for several companies. It wasn't just death row. I worked for trucking companies, doing security. Worked at nightclub, the Raiders Club, that was inside of the Compton Hotel. Worked several video shoots. Just extra money on the side for off duty.
Compton PD wasn't paying good?
Guess I was really young and greedy.
Yeah. And then at some point you said one of the jobs that you had was moonlighting for Death Row. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us what Death Row is?
Death Row Records is a record company that was based out of Beverly Hills, California. And, yeah.
And who ran Death Row Records at that time?
A gentleman that I actually grew up with at elementary school, junior high, and high school by the name of Marion Suge Knight.
And when you say Suge, is that what he would go by?
I call him Shug.
So after you retired, did you? Well, actually, let me take a step back. As part of your role as a police officer in Compton, were you familiar with the different neighborhoods and the members of different neighborhoods?
Yes, sir.
Was that part of your job to know what areas were associated with what gangs?
Pretty much a job, and like I said, I started in like 1985, so kind of got familiar while I was working the jail, and it was something that was curious to me. Being that my father was active with the gangs, and it was something that was intriguing to me as well.
When you said you grew up with Suge, did you grow up in the same neighborhood that Suge grew up in?
Yes, about 2 blocks away.
Was that considered Mob Piru territory?
That's correct, sir.
So when you were growing up, were you familiar with the Mob Piru?
They came on eventually later. It was really a Looters Park, Piru area. But then, I guess when I was about in the 7th grade, which would have been like 1978, maybe a little later, 80, they started calling themselves the Mob Piru.
So they were Looters Park, Piru before, and then they transitioned to being called Mob Piru.
Yeah, we pretty much divided it, everything south of Rosecrans was mob, and everything north was, or the other way around. North was mob, and south were Looters area of Rosecrans Avenue.
Were you familiar with a gang called the Southside Compton Crips?
Yes, sir.
How were you familiar with the Southside Compton Crips?
Well, growing up in the city of Compton, we all played sports together, and heard of them when I was playing at Kelly Park, baseball, Little League baseball, at Compton Northern. And then my time in '85 as a jailer, and then working the streets of Compton as a police officer from 1989.
Tell me about that. What were you doing when you're saying you're security or you're a security company that's working for Death Row Records or getting contracted by Death Row Records? What does that mean, actually?
It grew over a time period. In '94, it was just mainly just special events. And then I have a couple of off-duty or retired police officers hanging with the artists in '94. '95, '96, it got a little bigger. Had security at the office, at the recording studios, driving Mr. Knight around, two with Mr. Shakur, two with Snoop Dogg, Mr. Rodis, and other artists when they went to promotional events like that. So I could pretty much have about 10 officers working a day.
And when you say 10 officers, were the people that you would contract with or work for you in this world, were they largely off-duty police officers?
Off-duty or reserves or retired.
And why is that?
Because they were able to carry guns concealed, where it's not exposed. We had exposed officers at the studio, but mainly the bodyguards carried their weapons concealed.
And we heard...
And for the,
we heard from James McDonald just before you hit the stand. Was it fair to say that there were Mob Piru gang members also around Death Row Records?
That's correct. Mob, Looters, West Side, generally Pirus from the city of Compton.
And are these gangs that are generally associated with the Bloods? Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And the Crips are, let me ask you, Crips and Bloods, are they an alliance or are they typically in conflict?
Typically in conflict. However, Death Row was a unique situation because one of their main artists, prior to Mr. Shakur coming to the label, was Snoop Dogg, who was a known Crip from Long Beach. And they all seemed to have a great working relationship prior to my arrival and even during my arrival.
About Bad Boy Records. Are you familiar with a company called Bad Boy Records?
Yes, sir, I am.
And who, to your knowledge, was running Bad Boy Records in the mid-'90s?
P. Diddy, Sean Combs, Puffy, I don't know what name he's going by today.
All right, so we'll go with Mr. Combs for now.
Okay.
So Mr. Combs was running Bad Boy record, and then who would you say his most prominent artist at that time was?
Christopher Wallace, Biggie Small.
Okay, and then was there tension between Death Row Records and Bad Boy, the Bad Boy Entertainment label?
At what time period?
Well, you tell me. At any point, did tension develop between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records?
Initially, when I was around in '94, there wasn't. However, some things happened in '95 that started tension between Death Row and Bad Boys.
There's a famous speech that Mr. Knight gives at the Source Awards in New York in 1995. Does that contribute to it?
Yes, sir. That was August the 6th, 1995. But yes, sir. That was when he let the world know.
662 super busy that night, or was it kind of less crowded?
The clubs generally didn't start getting crowded until about 11 p.m. True name was Alton McDonald, and a gentleman by the name of Neckbone. Well, his true name is Roger Williams, and his moniker is Neckbone. They came inside the club and came straight to me. It was like, Reggie, Suge and Pac just got shot down the street. I thought they were messing with me because they like, where Reggie at, because I wasn't there with him. But then Mr. Khalees, who was standing near me, I guess he talked to some of the officers that was working out front, and he kind of verified to me that something happened. And then by that time, I see about 4 or 5 other units that were working at the club. They started taking out heading that way.
Now you mentioned two people, Buntree, Alton McDonald. Does Buntree have any relation to James McDonald, the person that testified before you?
That's his little brother. Yes, sir.
And then you had mentioned Neckbone, Roger Williams. Were these people employed by Right Way Security?
No, sir.
Were they part of Mob Pyro?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say, as we talked about earlier, that Suge would have members of Mob Pyro around?
Correct.
And while they weren't official security, would you say they provided a different form of security?
That would be a fair. Yes, that's correct.
So upon hearing the fact that, at that time when Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur were headed to Club 662, were you aware of their movements? Were you aware that they were headed over to the club at that point?
Not at that point. I hadn't heard anything. Frank hadn't communicated anything with me, and I just knew they would eventually get there. But no, I didn't know any movement where they were at or when they were coming towards our way.
Question for you, Frank. Right, you turn.
Correct.
How come your car didn't follow?
I did. I ran back to the car and followed Tupac
No,
and
but I'm
Suge.
talking about the car. How come the car you were driving didn't make the U-turn along with them?
She may follow the Cadillac.
Right, why did you follow?
The car behind me followed the Cadillac. My responsibility was to stay with Tupac, period. And to go even further into that, I was not driving my car. I was driving the car that Tupac had driven to Las Vegas, which was Kadada Jones's car. Oh. It had no gas in it. There was no gas in the car. Okay. The light was on and it was past E. I don't even know how the car kept driving.
You had said Frank hadn't told you anything. At this point, had Frank met up with Tupac?
Oh, I'm sorry. Frank was with Mr. Shakur since about 4 p.m. on that day, 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. He was with him all that day.
So he didn't drive out with Mr. Shakur, but he eventually met up with Mr. Shakur.
That's correct. Him and another.
He was, winning. He was doing good. And Pac said to me, go over, call Reggie, and find out what time Suge wants to meet to go into the fight. Tupac asked me to go make the call. I didn't have a radio. I couldn't contact Reggie, so I had to go to a landline phone. So I go to call. As I went to call on a landline phone, I came back to the table. and they were all gone.
Another gentleman who initially was with him by the name of Michael Moore.
And was Mr. Moore also a member of security?
He worked for Right Way as well.
Okay. And so then you have Mr. Shakur, Mr. Knight headed to Club 662. To your knowledge, were there other people headed over? I guess we already heard about Neckbone and Buntry. Were there other people headed over to Club 662 with Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur? On driving over, was there more than one car, or were there a number of cars driving over to Club 662?
And I can only speak on what I know now.
Yeah. Okay, well, no, back then, did you know?
I just know who normally with them.
The Voice was definitely one of our security that works directly for Mr. Knight.
Michael Moore, Tupac was shot after being taken off of Tupac with me, went back over to Club 662.
Police and Michael Moore, who was with Mr. Shakur earlier, who got, his primary job was to work at the club. He and I jumped in the car with Mr. Khalees and headed towards the scene where we were told Mr. Shakur and Mr. Knight was. However,
right before Reggie Wright got in the vehicle to go get to the hospital, someone else came on the radio and said, "Hey, don't say nothing over the radio."
That communication, however obtained, either through search warrant or otherwise, needs to be gathered, because how can you tell a conspiracy if you don't have the conspirators? Communication.
That Tupac and Suge had been shot. So Michael was with Reggie, and they went to the hospital together. And Michael talks about hearing something over the radio. Well, he would have heard it over Reggie's radio because he wouldn't have had a radio that night.
Right before.
However, en route, Mr. Khalees was on the phone, and we were notified that they were headed to UMC.
So did you go to UMC then?
That's correct.
Now, taking a step back, did you see the car that Buntry and Neckbone arrived to Club 662 in?
Eventually, yes, sir.
And did you notice anything notable about that car?
Yes, Mr. Buntry, he had a Toyota Supra that was black, and he had one bullet hole to the driver's side fender.
Now,
okay, the comment, I'm sure a detective can verify this, it doesn't matter, now it's 10 years old. Buntry and Neckbone, Alton McDonald and Roger St. Clair did follow the Cadillac.
That was the car behind me.
Okay, they did follow the Cadillac,
right.
And a detective can verify this, that there was bullet holes in the passenger door of the vehicle, which was recovered, which was the Supra.
It was a Supra.
It was a Supra.
When I went to Suge's house the next day, I saw the bullet holes in the car.
Yeah, that was recovered at a later date, but that's never been mentioned to the public or anything.
let's go back to, you're on your way back to, or you're on your way over to UMC. What happens at UMC?
Get there. Of course, Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur was in the emergency room. I didn't get to see Mr. Knight until about 3 hours later. I saw him, but there was a lot of people gathering. Yes, people heard what happened from the club. They started gathering there, and people were just starting to gather, and in the parking lot outside of the hospital.
Was Mr.
Maybe the police should have concentrated more on death row, the Nextel phone bills, and other things that could have helped them investigate it more in depth. I would definitely look more at death row than I would look at Mr. Anderson. And when I was at New York, what I heard Pac tell Suge Knight, and what I heard over that radio that night after the shots were fired.
I left prior. I don't know why I left. I left prior to him getting released about 4 or 5 that morning. But I know I was back at his house. I went and got his home secured. And I know I was back at his house about 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. that morning. And was with him all that day.
After all this, or sometime during this, do you make contact with your father?
Yes, sir.
How do you do that?
By phone. I called him a couple of times throughout that night. Told him what had just happened to Suge and Mr. Shakur. You know, it's kind of stressful for me. Called him a few times that night
How are you calling him?
by cell phone.
Oh, you had a cell phone at the time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there anything that you felt you had to relate to him in order to let him know what might be happening the next day in Compton?
Well, during that night or that early morning, I was getting information from people in the parking lot and around that, hey, you know, they got into it at the MGM with some guys from Southside Compton Clubs. And so I relayed that to him. Didn't know who the people were, just that they got into it with some guys from Southside. And I told him, hey, it's going to be trouble back in Compton.
When did you go back to Compton? Or when did you go back to California?
About 2 weeks later.
So you were in town while Mr. Shakur was at the hospital.
The whole time he was at the hospital, and that following week as well.
What was your role while Mr. Shakur was in the hospital?
I had two guys assigned outside his door the whole time he was fighting for his life, and they were there just. We had problems with. I remember a candy striper trying to sneak up and take a picture of him while he was lying fighting for his life, and we were just trying to keep people out. Of course, Ms. Shakur, his mother, was in charge, but just mainly trying to keep people out that she didn't want in, or got her permission to come in to see Mr. Shakur while he was fighting for his life.
And then you had said after Mr. Shakur had passed, you stayed in Vegas for another week?
That's correct.
Why is that?
Well, I'm the one that actually received his ashes, and had one of my security guys by the name of James Green fly back with the ashes, and eventually delivered them to someone in the family. I believe it was the mother, but if it wasn't her, it was somebody that she authorized to receive the ashes.
Okay, but you weren't the person that delivered the ashes.
James Green was.
You received the ashes and
Yes.
then gave it
To James.
Ray.
Yeah.
Said, and I'm trying to, in a sense, I'm trying to reach out to Reggie, and this is, you know, I'm probably the only one at the end of the day that can help you out, believe it or not. But I'm even willing at this point in time to put up my own money, $100,000. You say you had nothing to do with the Tupac shooting, Christopher Wallace shooting. You take a polygraph. I'll set you up with a place. You take a polygraph, and if you had nothing to do with it, my God, it'll be on the 6 o'clock news. I will give you $100,000. The world knows I will give you $100,000 of my own money.
I want to ask you this just straight. Did you have anything to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur?
Absolutely not.
Of the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand, were there any legal proceedings that involved Mr. Knight?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say that Mr. Knight was on probation at the time of the beating at the MGM Grand?
He was.
Actually, can we show 115?
And Mr. Shakur, Mr. Knight, Buntry, Mr. Williams. I don't see Frank yet. Okay, there you go. Mr. Alexander is the one with no sleeves on his shirt. And he's leading the pack now.
Did you see Trayvon Lane?
I don't see Mr. Lane yet. No, he had a hat on. I've seen him before. I don't see him right now, though. Let me look again. drink.
What is that?
That's a death row chain medallion.
And we'll touch on that in a minute. But we were talking about the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM. Mr. Knight was on probation at the time you had mentioned. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then after you guys got back from Las Vegas back to the Southern California area, did Mr. Knight have a legal problem as a result of his alleged participation in that beating?
That's correct, sir.
And can you explain that to us?
They brought him in. Initially, they brought him in, they said, for a dirty test for that he did with his probation officer. But while he was still in custody, they then added the charge of he violated his probation for assaulting Mr. Anderson.
So he's on probation, he's on...
That's correct.
And then there was an agreement that $60,000 would change hands between Suge Knight or Death Row or some aspect of that side to Mr. Anderson. Is that correct?
That's correct, but that was made between the attorneys, Mr. Kenner, who was also present, and Mr. Fall.
Okay. I'm not saying that you're the person that did that. I'm just saying you were... That
I was at the meeting, myself and Norris Anderson, who was the general manager of the company at the time.
Okay. And then at that probation hearing, is it fair to say that Mr. Anderson said that Mr. Knight was just trying to stop the fight and not participate in the fight at all?
That was his testimony, yes.
Okay. And that was after he received the $60,000?
That part I don't know.
That was after the agreement for the $60,000?
It was an agreement in place, though.
Okay. And then is it fair to say that the judge disregarded Mr. Anderson's testimony and revoked Mr. Knight's parole?
Objection is accused leading.
Sustained.
Well, did the judge believe Mr. Anderson's testimony?
So Mr. Knight was subsequently violated for his probation and received 9 years sentence.
And
Lawrence Longo was the #2 district attorney back between 93, 94, 95. Basically, that's how Suge Knight basically had 16, 17 felony convictions, of course, never went to prison. Lawrence Longo was on Mr. Knight's payroll. Am I correct? Well, his daughter
was an artist in our studio.
His daughter, Gina, was. I'm just giving you he lost his job because of me. That information obviously was turned over to the Federal Bureau. Gina was going to be the first white artist on Death Row Records. Mm-hmm. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we're all on the same page.
Your YouTube channel, you have spoken a little bit about me, for instance, right?
That's correct. And you have spoke about me as well.
Yeah. So in terms of your podcast or YouTube channel, and once again, I don't think it was anything derogatory. It was more like you never tried a criminal case, or I think Hollywood-ass attorney. I think you had said something like that, right?
Well, you did about 10 interviews in the last 2 months, so I may have said something like that.
Now, in terms of your podcast stuff, it's very this pretty good point. At some point, you had actually instructed Keith that, hey, he can actually make money doing the YouTube stuff. Remember that?
It didn't go quite like that, but I did pass his number to a few YouTube channels after he and I had this discussion about doing something on my channel, but I refused to pay him because I'm not giving someone I believe is Tupac Killer money.
Sure. You had a interview with a Mr. Mogg. Do you remember that?
Detective Mogg, yes, sir.
Was he a detective at the time?
He was.
Okay, so he's a detective at the time, and he sat down with you, and you had a conversation with him, and you basically told him that you had advised KPD about the, I don't know, how much you can get paid doing YouTube stuff. You remember that?
I don't remember that, no.
Now, you created the security company. You were moonlighting, sort of doing your job during the day and then doing this other side hustle at night.
That's accurate.
And that side hustle became your full-time gig when you were no longer a police officer.
That's correct, sir.
And so in terms of who you were, the main service you provided services for would have been Death Row Records.
95%. That's correct, sir.
And in essence, I mean, this was your number one client, right?
I agree with you.
Okay. And you spent a lot of time with Suge.
Eventually that grew, but yes. 94, not as much. 95, 96, yes, sir.
Okay. And you're providing services for Suge in terms of security, right?
For Suge or his company?
For the Death Row label.
That's correct, sir.
And you actually had created a company specifically for the security.
Protective services.
Protective services, okay. Now, as you're going about doing that, you had shared with us a little bit about some of the things you had done. And you shared with us that, hey, there was something that happened at one of the award ceremony. You talked about that, right?
At the Soul Train, that's correct.
Tension in the air. Was there anything going on during that time period prior to, September of 1996 that was happening that was telling you, hey, I need to make sure that Death Row Records is protected?
You always had an element because of incidents when you go out to nightclubs, the party scene.
And because you're dealing with someone like Suge Knight, and at that particular point, any of his other people that was working for him, like say the entertainers, right? You're talking Snoop, you're talking Tupac, that you would have adequate security to protect them, like say from fans and that kind of stuff.
I called it, my cell was to be good witnesses. Mr. Knight had just went through a situation with one of his artists, Snoop Dogg, that was on trial for murder. And they ended up beating the case. But they had got a large judgment, mainly because of the qualifications or the lack of qualifications of the security officer that was acting as security officer that shot him and killed the person. And so when you have a big company like Mr. Knight had, I thought it was best, and he thought it was best, or maybe his attorneys, I don't know, his label, that let's get some professional people around you.
And so, for the most part, your practice was to hire people that were either off-duty police officers or retired police officers.
That's correct, sir.
And you did that because they were properly trained and you could trust them in terms of their judgment.
That and my cell was to be a good witness.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
But with regards to their roles obviously, at the end of the day, were to protect the people that were your clients.
Why would you just have Frank with him when you got all these other cops? And you just don't know. And one thing I knew, obviously this whole thing was starting to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And like I said, at one point or another, Reggie and I were like brothers. Okay, at one point or another, there's nothing I wouldn't do for Reggie. Mm-hmm. And I think vice versa at one time. But Reggie always told me he was so far in now, there's no way turning around. Mm-hmm. But obviously I knew what he meant.
Yeah. I understand that.
And, even today as I'm sitting here, Reggie knows how to get a hold of me. And I'm probably only the last person at this point in time that could save him.
That would have been Death Row Records. So on this particular night, there's actually Metropolitan police officers that were they hired by you to be on the outside?
Well, I would say Club 662 or under Mr. Khaleesi and the person that was running the club, under their direction. I knew they were going to be there, but I didn't speak to anyone from the police department to say, this is how much y'all going to be getting paid. I need you to do this. I just knew they were going to be working from the door out.
So, yeah, okay.
Yes.
And really the concern at this particular point that you had, as well as I'm assuming Mr. Khaleesi as the attorney, is you wanted to make sure everything was going to go well for the club.
That's correct. That's fair.
In essence, and to help Suge with passing up this particular club, right?
That's correct, sir.
So one of the things that had happened that you had shared with us is that Friday you meet with Khaleesi and you learn and you're instructed that your people are not to be carrying firearms.
Inside the nightclub.
Right. Inside.
About 15 minutes before.
15 minutes prior, was he panicked?
Yes, he was. He was nervous. He was. I've been on a street situation when we were police officers with Reggie. Looking for armed suspects. Mm-hmm. And he's never been this nervous before.
Okay. That's deep. So, did you know at that time that they weren't allowed to carry guns? Or did you find out the following day?
No, at that time when I spoke to Reggie, no.
Okay.
I found out several hours later from another officer LAPD officer is no longer with us, Rich McCulley, that, you know, something was up because Frank told him, he told him everybody, they're not supposed to carry guns.
Right, inside of the nightclub.
That's correct, sir.
All the way up until the time that they get to that door, they're not supposed to be carrying firearms.
Inside the club.
Are you aware that the Red Alert people from Mob James were all carrying firearms that night?
I had problems with that. My guys were strict, law enforcement. They didn't care about, they didn't have a relationship with James and them as I did. And so they will search them. And if they got one in, who knows? But there was always issues with them about being searched. But my guys would still, they were like, hey, if you want us here, we searching everybody coming to this club.
Right, so that was important for you, but Mob James says otherwise. He says everyone was
Okay,
fine.
if they snuck them in,
And
it happens.
And yeah, and with regards to your meeting with Mr. Kalesis, once again, you're there, and do you have at that particular point any ownership interest at all in Death Row Records?
None.
So you are a separate entity. You are just the security company hired to provide security for Death Row Records.
My company, Right Way, was making money, but I also received a salary from Death Row.
Okay. So, and you're in this meeting, and once again, the meeting is to help Suge get this club approved so he can make it happen.
That's correct, sir.
And your job is, really honestly, is just somebody who's providing the security to the club.
On that particular night, but I'm more, some would say at one point, Suge right-hand guy. But my main focus was Suge Knight entities. It wasn't just the recording artist, wasn't just the record club, it was everything that Mr. Knight was trying to invest in at the time.
So you're telling us that not only were you providing security, but you're also like an employee for Death Row Records?
I was both.
Okay. Were you drawing like a paycheck every 2 weeks as an employee?
I was, sir.
There wasn't no under the table stuff like Mob James would have been telling us?
We didn't do that. Right, we didn't do that.
And with regards to Mob James being paid, you're telling me that he would have been paid the same way with employee checks and so forth from Death Row Records?
Bob James wasn't one of those employees. Like I said, he was just called on special events.
Up to this point, you had developed into the person that if you wanted to get a hold of Suge, they would call you, right?
In the streets, meaning when we out and about. He had an office staff, assistants, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Tesfaye, Roy, that were in the office. But generally, if I call Suge, he'll pick up.
But with regards to you, usually you would have been with Suge in order for the call to be made, right? They're calling you and they're like, hey, where's Suge now? He's right here.
That's correct.
So on this particular night, Tupac is upset because Suge is obviously late and calls you.
His bodyguard Frank called, but he got on the phone.
Yeah.
If you know anything about Mr. Shakur, he's a hands-on guy. Yeah. And he eventually just said, hey, you can't get a hold to him, we gone. And they took a taxi over to the fight.
And so
Kevin Hackie just walked up here, who was my replacement. He was the backup bodyguard to Tupac. He obviously has something he wanted to say.
I'll interject what you're saying. First of all, I'm a retired police officer. I was the undercover agent for the FBI for 4 years for Death Row Records in regards to racketeering investigation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation.
you have Frank Alexander, you have Tupac, and no other bodyguards protecting Tupac that night.
Yeah, Kevin Hackie was supposed to attend, but he didn't. He wasn't there.
My job, as I said, was to infiltrate Death Row for racketeering violations. There was another officer from Long Beach PD who worked undercover. Subsequently, Reggie Wright was my partner. I'd known Reggie for many years. Based upon that, that's why I was called in to do this investigation. Okay, but there was a whole slew of the people in front of the hospital. Metropolitan Police car pulled out. I was the only guy, I arrived in Vegas that morning, that went to the police station, identified myself. I was given authorization to carry a firearm, which I still do have all the paperwork. Obviously,
and I didn't know that he hadn't shown up yet.
I was Los Angeles County jail booking in a burglary suspect. I went to work that day. I had arrested someone early on that day, a burglary suspect. During the apprehension of the arrest, the suspect was injured. So I had to transport him to Los Angeles County General Hospital. And anytime you book in a suspect that's injured, it has to be medical clearance. And that's where I was down there.
But you are aware at that particular point, Tupac was the most famous rapper almost in the entire world, if not the entire world, and you only assign one person and another person calls him sick?
He didn't call us sick, he just didn't show up. But
Reggie still was a police officer.
Who hired you, and how did you get, who interviewed you for the job?
Well, I was never interviewed. Reggie and I used to be partners.
Yeah, Reggie and you were partners, but so you got hired on before Reggie, right?
No. Reggie basically brought me in.
Brought you in. Okay, so, and Reggie wasn't part of the undercover investigation. He didn't even know.
Go ahead.
No, he didn't.
Okay, I have a
yeah, I mean, it wasn't unusual for Mr. Shakur to roll around with one guy and his outlaw guys.
But once again, you're telling us it's only Frank Alexander that's coming from your outfit, right?
That is correct.
And you also share with us that there's other people inside of 662 who are patting down the Mob James crew, but you can't send any more people over to be there for Tupac?
If I knew there was going to be an issue that eventually happened, of course I would have. I would have asked them to stay in the hotel.
Now,
if I knew what was going to happen.
You are aware that this was fight night.
I received a call from Reggie about 11:15 that night. I mean, he was just, a tape was worth $1 million. If I'd had that tape, just cursing me out about how I should have got on the plane and this and that, and Shug's upset, all these people down here, and it's only Frank with Tupac. And so I said to him, well, you have all these cops over here at 662. Why don't you have the cops over there with him? And Reggie I could tell, I know Reggie well enough, and I know you well enough, that he was agitated. There was something in his voice. As I said, about 15 minutes before. And so, lo and behold, obviously this incident occurs.
This was Mike Tyson, and that everyone in the world would show up to Las Vegas to be there for the fight, right?
Yeah.
There are so many people.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, only if you believe that Tupac was somehow going to get into a fight or something along those lines would you have provided more than just the one person? I'm just asking for your clarification.
I would have had an army around him if I knew something like that was going to happen, or suspect something like that was going to happen. But the gentlemen that were with them, and the ones that you seen kicking on Mr. Anderson, those were security as well.
That was
death row style.
But once again, let me make sure I'm clear. You, at this particular point, only have one security guard with all these other people from Death Row Records who are not security guards. They're all gangsters, mob Hyru people.
Yeah, I trust more than I trust my security.
Investigations did take over the investigation approximately about 20 minutes after Tupac was shot, which is a matter of public record. There's even on record, which is on the 9th, that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police attempted to detain me. An agent by the name of Dan McMullen, who was my supervisor, contacted the Metropolitan Police Department at about 9 o'clock on September 9th. As I said before, to answer your question, eventually there will be an arrest regarding Mr. Shakur, and I bet we can say Mr. Wallace. Am I right? You believe so? We're all on the same page. I'm not even a cop no more. A girlfriend of mine called me at about 12:30 in the morning because she had heard originally all the different reports. His bodyguard was in the car, an ex-girlfriend of mine. And 3 months prior to that, in June of 96, myself, Tupac, Shug, Reggie, and a couple of homeboys, we were there in Vegas for the fights. Tupac rode with me the whole time. And when he was with me, I always made him wear a bulletproof vest. He always knew when he was with me, he had to wear the vest. He always knew I had 2 guns on him. So God forbid something happens to me, you do what you got to do at that point in time. He always knew that. We rode around the city, convertible, no problems, this and that. Reggie and I rode around together a couple of times. And, it was just in a sense you start getting a funny feeling. Here it was 3 months before. It's just us down here. And then about a week or 2 weeks before he was shot, the incident up in Hollywood, when I was out there by myself and all the sheriffs rolled out. So when you think this is their number one artist, he's as high profile as they get, and you're paying for all the security. You got all these guys at the club. something's wrong. The pieces, this whole situation, it just doesn't fit. But I think at the end of the day, ultimately, Reggie is and will be the fall guy at the end of the day.
Cops and off-duty cops and retired cops, you trust those mob pirate guys?
I do personally.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, after they go in for the fight, right? I'm assuming that Frank Alexander probably didn't have a ticket.
You know, that was always an issue with Mr. Knight.
Yeah.
He promised everybody that they can go to the fight. And when we get to the door, it's always an issue.
Right.
But one thing about him, he will get his, at least Mr. Shakur, one security in, if not both, and myself. He will make sure we got in.
Okay, so they all get in for the fight, and then for some reason, Bruce Seldon takes a phantom punch, falls to the ground in the first round within a minute and 45 seconds, right?
You call it phantom? If you say so.
I'm just looking at the tape, right? All we got is a syringe.
Hyped up.
So, did you get a call from Frank Alexander saying, hey, the fight ended early, we're on our way?
Not one. And that's normal.
Okay. And I want to make sure we're clear about the type of communication you had. So, cell phones, I'm not sure were available to everybody. You had one.
Pretty much everybody had cell phones, but they were expensive. He called me after 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't get it. But everyone else.
I did have Nextel phones. We had about 8 to 10 of them. They did dual jobs. My guys knew it better be emergency to pick up that cell phone.
Yeah.
But the two-way walkie-talkies on the Nextels, you could use them to call. That's how we communicated.
Again, to what Frank has, Frank does have one of those radios.
He had one, but later learned, after we do Monday back quarterbacking and stuff, that it was dead.
So he is there. He doesn't call when you leave the fight. Now, does he call you after the situation happens with Orlando Anderson?
No, sir.
They all rush out, right? They all go back to, I think, to Luxor.
That's correct.
But you don't know that because no one calls you.
Haven't heard anything. Didn't know it was an issue.
So you're still sitting over at 662. You're worried about making sure the club passes inspections, and you're there and you're waiting. In the meantime, people get picked up at the Luxor, and then they're transported all the way to Suge Knight's house.
I mean,
But again, if you don't know, you can just tell me.
yeah. I just assume
You're not just.
yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Now, at some point, they're traveling down Flamingo, and the shots occur at that particular point, right? But you don't know.
Correct.
And so you're sitting at the club, and you don't know.
I wasn't sitting, but yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. I mean, I'm sure you're working, right? So you're working, and your concern is making sure the club passes, and that the club passes for Suge Knight. Even though his attorney's present, all these cops are on the outside, and you have the security proficiency of Mob James on the inside, right?
And about 25 to 30 of my guys.
And so, but once again, yes, 20 to 30 of your guys.
Correct, yeah.
Retired police officers or off-duty police officers.
Correct.
And they're all there.
Correct.
And at some point, you get notice that Tupac had been shot. Right?
I got notified. Correct.
Was it through the Nextel walkie-talkie stuff?
No, sir.
How did that happen?
Mr. Williams and Mr. McDonald ran up to me and told me.
Okay. None of your people, but two of the people that were associated with the death row people?
With the entourage.
Okay. And they're the ones who told you that, hey, something went down with Tupac.
Correct.
And so at that particular point, what did you do?
Like I said, I didn't believe him at first initially, but we talking seconds now. Mr. Khalees somehow, verified that, yeah, something's going on. And then me observing a few of the police cars that were assigned at the working the parking lot or the taking off license sirens going towards that way made me believe that something's going on.
Now, did Suge Knight ever appear at the club and continue partying that night?
I don't know. but I have heard James say that before. But
What about just from your Monday night sitting down with your people and going over what should have been done better? Was there any conversation or any way that you learned that Suge Knight actually showed up to party the night of the shooting?
the party was over. The party was over. They probably were still there at the club, but it wasn't like no partying going on. Especially after people heard what happened. I can see that.
Now, we talked a little bit about the death row chain. Do you recall telling Detective Mogg when he visited with you that you sold your death row chain because of hard times?
I had a platinum one. That's correct.
Now, later on, when you're testifying in the grand jury, remember doing that?
I still have my gold one, if that's what you're asking.
So, when the question is asked in the beginning about your death row chain, you never tell Detective Mogg, for instance, that it's a platinum one, right?
I don't know.
Well, let me just
tell me.
Wait. The camera's on. You want to turn the camera off?
Oh, sorry. So this would be page 21, counsel, of the surreptitious report or recording. So you say, the question that was asked by Detective Mogg, you were describing the chains as cheap. He said, he had asked you, got a $300 chain? He said, yeah, one of those cheap little chains because they were messing around with the same women and they got one and he got mad about it. My presumption...
Are we talking about Keefe?
Yes.
Yes.
So what? What did expensive ones look like? Do you have a picture of those? And you said, yes, sir, I can show you the one that Tupac would have. And then the question's asked of you by Detective Mogg, did you ever get one of those chains? And you respond, yeah, I had one. And then the question was, what happened to it? And you said, shit, hard times hit. Grayson says, yeah, I hear you. You said, I've got to get rid of it somehow. And then Detective Mogg asked, what did you get for it? And you said, I got about $5,000, right?
Yeah, that was the platinum one,
Okay.
or the white gold one. You can watch, and I'm sure you have, several interviews, pictures with me with my gold chain on. I wear them on several YouTube videos.
But fair to say, of course, that, when you said you had one, it's not one gold, it's not one platinum in this book, right?
Like I said, the one I sold was the platinum one.
Now, in addition to that, later on, when you're testifying before the grand jury, the question that was asked by one of the jurors was, and I want to make sure I'm clear because I don't want to mess up I want to be accurate with you.
Your Honor, I think this is improper.
Been convicted of a crime.
I am.
And with regards to that crime, it was a felony.
It was sales of marijuana.
No, back up here real quick. It was sales of marijuana and it was also embezzlement. Is that what it was?
No,
Money laundering?
Money laundering.
With
money going in.
And with regard to those two things, that happened in California.
No, actually, well, the reason why I got in trouble because it went across state lines to Memphis. It's actually Memphis, Tennessee.
And because it was across the state lines, it was a federal case.
Correct. Sir.
1997.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
So Suge Knight is in Las Vegas, and you were with them every single day, and in September of 1996, he just happened to get in this fray, and next thing you know, he's going to prison, right?
I'm sorry?
Let me ask you this. Why did Suge go to prison?
He violated his probation.
Right. So you knew, of course, that he was on probation, right? Before
The whole time I was with him.
You did?
From 1994, yes.
Yeah. And so you knew that the number one person from Death Row Records, the primary principal for you, potentially could go to prison if he got into a fight, for instance, right?
Correct.
And on this particular night, you weren't around for him when he was in this quote-unquote fight, right?
I was around with Mr. Knight about 70 to 80% of his life. So I guess a lot of 20%, I wasn't with him.
Okay.
Public, and when I say that, I mean public. Because a lot of times he laid up, sleep with somebody, and I wasn't with him.
So in the most important time of Suge Knight's life, of having your protection, you weren't there for him.
Unfortunately not. That's correct.
And then you became the general manager of Death Row Records.
By his calling, not anyone else.
All right. No further questions.
And who made you in charge of Death Row Records while Mr. Knight was in prison?
He did, and I visited him 4 days a week during that time while he was incarcerated.
Nothing further.
General manager when he was in custody.
That's correct.
No further questions.
At the House of Blues, and they came over to Tupac and they asked him, "Who do you represent? Who are you down with?" And Tupac said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Who you repping?" He goes, "You with Death Row? They're Bloods. You know, you hanging out with Crips, you hanging out with Bloods. Who you repping?" And he was like, "Man, I don't represent no one but me. I'm Tupac Shakur." He goes, "That's who I represent. I am neutral." And that was it. Pac was friends with Snoop. Pac was friends with Shook. If you want to represent a color with Tupac, it would have been green. He was gambling.
During our conversation on the way back from the MGM Grand, I explained to Tupac that Mr. Wright was taking me off of him earlier that day. And I walked him all the way to his room.
So I'm walking all over the MGM looking for him before I could even realize he isn't even in the building.
And I explained he's a real impatient person. I walked him to his room, and my understanding was he was supposed to wait there till other security got to him.
I get back over to the Lexor, and I'm looking all around for him. I'm on his phone, calling, trying to find him, and Pac walks up behind me. I'm like, "Pac, where you been, man? I'm looking all over for you guys over to MGM." He's like, "Oh, we walked back over here. I was ready to go."
So I went to my room, and that was actually the last. I didn't have no knowledge he was downstairs in the lobby until Frank Alexander called me and said, "Hey, Mike, why is Tupac down here?" And I even believe on the phone, I explained to Frank, even then, I am not on Tupac. I kept trying to say that the only person that was assigned to Tupac at that time was Frank Alexander. We had an issue with our clothes. Me and Frank had on short pants that day. We needed to change our clothes to get into the right clothes for the fight. But there was some problems there because with me not really being on Tupac, the person who really needed to change his clothes was Frank.
So I called Michael Moore on the house phone and said, "Hey, get back down here because Pac is, getting ready to want to, take off and everything, and he's upset about Reggie. Have you talked to Reggie?"
So we let Frank go change his clothes while I waited. Then Frank changed his clothes, came back and picked up on Pac, and then I went back to my room. To this day, I believe that Tupac was under the impression that I was going to be going to the MGM Grand with him. But that wasn't the case. When I went to my room, I knew in my heart I wasn't coming back because I had been instructed to go to Club 662, and that's what I did. He got a little upset because now that I think back on it, he said he's paying for this shit and that he is telling us where we're going. I remember him saying that real loud that day in the lobby, that I'm paying for you, you go where I say go. And then I said, "Frank, you need to make a phone call to Reggie."
And Pac said, "Michael, come over to the MGM and meet us over there."
Tupac even called Reggie and had Frank get in touch with Reggie to find out where Michael Moore was at. So the problem was festering, and I knew something wasn't right. So when I went to my hotel room, I told Tim Williams, "Something is not right here, Tim. What we have to do is find out what's going on." So I said, "Let me go downstairs and I'll change clothes and I'll work with Tupac until Reggie says something." Tim said, "Mike, don't do it." He goes, "You're gonna piss Reggie off, don't do it." I go, "Tim, Frank's gonna need some help." He said, "Don't do it. Just get dressed and go to the club." Deal that I received them 4 phone calls prior to Tupac getting killed.
While we were at the MGM out in the arena right there waiting to go in, I had the regular security escort us behind the line.
3 of the phone calls came from Mr. Wright, and 1 phone call came from Al Giddens, who was also head of 662 Security. And I asked him, I go, "Al, why are you calling my room at 10 after 8 if I'm not supposed to be there at 10? And his answer was, "Reggie just called me and told me to call you." I said, "Well, don't call me no more. And then after that, all my phone calls came directly from Mr. Wright.
You know, people saw Pac, they were, Tupac, that's Tupac, you know, and we're waiting for Michael Moore to show up. At that point in time, I had lost all communication with Michael Moore. I didn't know whether he was coming, what was going on, or anything.
I think there was a reason for that. And I think the reason was making sure that no one carried a weapon.
Pac was real antsy. He was like, where's Suge at? Where's Suge? How come Suge ain't here? You know, he's looking at it at the time and stuff, and it's getting closer for the fight to start at this point. People are going in.
Well, we got down to the MGM, right in the front of it, right where the fight was at, and I was getting ready to get out of the car. I rode with Tim Williams over there. He goes, Mike, what are you doing? I said, Tim, I should just get out. Because if Reggie yells at me and I'm covering Tupac, how bad can that be? Well, at the last second, I decided to just stay in the car. I went to Club 662.
Tupac.
Me, that's the beginning of our downfall.
Suge got there with a couple of people that was with him, whoever it was that had the tickets, and we went in to the fight right as the national anthem was playing.
Tupac was to
What you just heard was Reggie Wright Jr.'s testimony, alongside previously recorded statements from individuals who were connected to Tupac and his security during that period. Some of those men are no longer here and cannot take the witness stand today. That's why we believe it's important to preserve their own words and allow those recordings to remain part of the conversation. We're not declaring anyone truthful or untruthful. We're not making accusations, and we're not asking you to reach a conclusion before this trial is complete. Our job here is simple. Present what is being said today. Present what was said then. And let the record speak for itself. The trial continues, and so will our coverage.